There is a woman I want to tell you about before we get into anything else. Her name is Martha, 9 years at the same company, senior marketing analyst for a cruise line, sharp, experience, the kind of person who knew that industry inside out. And then a management shift happened, and almost overnight, her job became unbearable. A new boss who made every single day feel heavy, not just Mondays, every day. She was already working 60-hour weeks, and then they handed her the Latin American market on top of her existing load without a conversation, without a title change, without anything except more responsibility and the same amount of disrespect. So she left. Out of pure exhaustion and frustration, she resigned. No plan, no runway, just the thought, I will figure it out as I go. When Martha and I started working together, she had been out of corporate for almost 3 months. And I want to be careful about how I describe what I observed in that first session because it wasn't just stress. It was a specific kind of pain that comes from feeling like you made an irresponsible decision. There was regret, there was guilt, there was this quiet grief of someone who did the brave thing but skipped the preparation and was now living in the gap between those two things. Here's what I want you to know about Martha. 6 months later, she had built a business. Her husband got transferred to Canada and she opened a coffee shop, something she had dreamed about for years. And because of her marketing background, that cafe didn't just survive. It did well enough that she's now opening a second location. Martha's story has a good ending, but those 3 months in between, that was a cost she didn't have to pay. And I'm telling you this because I want you to understand what this episode is actually about. This is not about whether you should leave. If you are listening to this, you probably already know the answer to that. This is about what happened in the window before you do. Welcome to At What Point, the podcast where we dive into the real, raw, and rewarding journey of personal and professional growth. I'm Catherine, your host, here to guide you through mindset shifts, powerful aha moments, and the resilience it takes to thrive no matter what life throws your way. Whether you're climbing the corporate ladder, taking the leap into entrepreneurship, or just looking for that boost of motivation, you are in the right place. Let's dive in. I need to tell you something about my own story too, because I think it matters here. I wanted to leave my senior director position for almost a year and a half before I actually did anything about it. A year and a half. And the whole time, I had every reason to stay. The paycheck, the title, the benefits, the story I kept telling myself about stability and responsibility, the what ifs that had a very convincing argument, and I let them run the conversation for longer than I should have. But then something happened that I couldn't talk myself out of. I moved from Orlando to Tampa for my son Luca, who has autism, so he could attend a private school he had been on the waiting list for. He was 8 years old. And I remember his first day at that new school in a new city, and something shifted in me in a way I hadn't expected. I look at him and I look at my daughters, Nicole and Anna, and for the first time, I stopped asking myself what I would lose if I left my career. I started asking what they were losing while I stayed. That was the moment I stopped waiting and start preparing. I'm not telling you that you need a moment like that, but I'm telling you that the window you have right now while you are still employed, still have income, still have access, that window is not guaranteed. And most people don't use it. They wait until they are emotionally done and then they leave and then they figure it out just like Martha did. And it works out sometimes, but it costs more than it should. So if you are still in your job right now and you know you're leaving, here's what actually matters during this time. The first thing is financial clarity, not the number that sounds manageable, the real number. What does your life actually cost every month? Housing, food, healthcare, childcare, debt, everything. Write it down. No softening it. because that number tells you something most people avoid looking at directly. How much urgency you are actually working with, whether you have room to experiment or whether you need to move with precision from day one. Without that number, every decision you make is filtered through anxiety. And anxiety is not a business strategy. The second thing, and this is the one people almost always miss until it's too late, is building your personal archive before you leave. Performance reviews, project outcomes, matrix from initiatives you led, processes you designed, templates you built, the actual evidence of what you have produced over the years. Because once you submit that resignation, you may lose access to all of it. It lives on a company system and you don't get back for it. Your credibility doesn't come from your title. It comes from the work behind it. Document it before you go. Do it within company policies. Do it carefully, but do it. And here's the third one. And I say this as someone who has watched women neglect these. If your employer provides healthcare, use it right now. Friend, schedule the appointments you have been putting off, the checkups, the specialist visits, the things on your list that never feel urgent. Because once you leave, your coverage changes, your costs change. And the last thing you want is to be navigating a major life transition while also dealing with something you could have handled from a position of stability. And then there is the piece that I think matters more than most people realize. Update your network, not with a post announcing you are open to opportunities. Intentionally start with your LinkedIn, and I mean actually update it, not just dates and titles, but results. What you move, what you build, what changed because of your work. Most people list responsibilities instead of outcomes and then wonder why the right doors don't open. The next thing that I want you to do is to start having real conversations with people who are already on the other side of the decision you are about to make. If you are thinking about building a business, talk to people who have built one, not to get permission or to pitch yourself, but to understand what that path actually looks like before you are standing at the beginning of it with a depleted savings account and a deadline. Because having those conversations while you are still having a paycheck changes everything about how they feel because you are operating from curiosity instead of desperation. And that is a completely different foundation to build from. I want to say one more thing before I close this out. Whether you want to build your own business or you want to move to a better company or you're still figuring out what the next chapter even looks like, you are not alone in this feeling. Every woman I have ever worked with who has climbed the corporate ladder has sat in some version of this exact place. The tension between what is and what could be, the weight of decision that keeps getting deferred. And I want you to hear this clearly. The situation you are in right now is not the only option. The path forward exists. It just requires you to stop waiting for the perfect moment and start using the one you already have. So let me ask you this. At what point do you stop letting the paycheck be the reason for you to stay instead of the tool you use to prepare to leave? And at what point do you decide that the window you have right now, the stability, the access, the income, is worth more as a foundation that is a reason to wait? You don't need to have everything figured out before you start preparing. You just need to stop treating preparation like something you will get to do later. Martha didn't have that runway. You still do, friend. Before you go, if this episode resonated, you need to be on my email list. Every Wednesday, I send out marketing strategies, mindset shifts, and AI tips you can actually use. No fluff. Head to katherinebeltran.com/move, and I will see you in your inbox this Wednesday. Love the show? Hit subscribe. See you next time.